Hi everyone and welcome to my new video. My name is Charlene and this is my little YouTube channel where I talk mainly about books but also with a little bit of travel and lifestyle as well. And today I'm really excited to be talking to you about If We Were Villains by M.L Rio. Hi everyone, I hope you're well and you've had a good week. Like I said just now in my little intro, I'm really excited today to be talking to you about If We Were Villains by M.L Rio, and I'm, spoiler alert, going to be really excited to talk about this one because I haven't read a book in a really long time that I felt connected to and really interested in as much as this one. So I'm super excited to talk to you about that today. And today is a mega hot day here in the UK, and I've had to close my windows so that there isn't like the road noise. So if I start looking a bit red and flustered, that's why. It's horrible weather here. It's like 30 degrees, which I know if you're in another country doesn't sound like anything, but we have no aircon and our houses are like insulated, so it keeps all that muggy, horrible, humid air in, and it's just so gross and I can't wait for it to stop. But anyway, I will stop talking about the weather and I will start talking to you about If We Were Villains. So as always, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I'm trying not to give too much away in these review videos because I want it to be just enough information for you to be able to go, oh, that sounds interesting, maybe I'd like to read that, or add it to my TBR list, or no, that's not for me, rather than give away an entire plot and dissect a book entirely, which is just, I'm not going to be able to do. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review, and before I get started, I'm going to give you a few little details on it. So firstly, If We Were Villains is a dark academia book and it has 422 pages. The average rating for it on Goodreads is 4.11, and let me just quickly read you the blurb. Oliver Marks has just served 10 years for a murder he may or may not have committed. On the day of his release, he is greeted by the detective who put him in prison, Detective Colborne. He is retiring and he wants to know what really happened a decade before. As a young actor at an elite conservatory, Oliver noticed that his talented classmates seemed to play the same characters on stage and off, whether that be villain, hero, temptress, though he was always a supporting role. But when the teachers changed the casting, the good-natured rivalry turns ugly and the play spills dangerously over into real life. When tragedy strikes, one of the 7 friends is found dead. The rest face their greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police and themselves that they are blameless. So if you haven't watched any of my other videos, you may not know, but I'm a massive fan of dark academia, and one of my favourite books is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. So I was super excited to get to this book because a lot of people draw comparisons between the two. And on the cover it says, like Donna Tartt's The Secret History, M.L Rio's sparkling debut is a richly layered story of love, friendship and obsession. So right from the top, I thought that I was going to absolutely love this book. So I'm going to give you an overview of the plot in a spoiler-free way. I'm going to touch on the characters and the themes of the book a little bit, and then I'm going to go into my thoughts and feelings about it. So obviously the blurb has just given us quite a lot of information, but actually, usually when I'm doing these review videos, I look at the blurb and I read it out and I go, there's not too much more I can say other than that. But I feel like that blurb doesn't really cover the entirety of the book, because what it's about, what it says there at the back about, like, you know, somebody going to jail, coming out 10 years later, and one of the 7 friends is found dead and all of that. Yes, that all happens, but that is definitely not like the main part of the story and the main focus of the book. And actually, a lot of that stuff doesn't happen until quite far on into the book. So for me, that is a good blurb and everything, but there's so much more to the book than that. And I don't really know where to start. Obviously, I'm going to try and not give too much away as well. So basically, you've got a group of 7 friends, and similarly to The Secret History, when they're all kind of at college on a campus and they are studying Greek language and Greek philosophy and all things like that, this group of friends is at an elite school called Dallasher, and they are there. It's like an arts school, so there's people there doing philosophy, art, music, theatre, all of that stuff, all of the arts basically. And this group of friends are at Dallasher to do theatre. and mainly they focus on Shakespearean theatre. So as soon as that came up, I was like, this is even better for me, because we live very much in Shakespeare's town and in that part of the world, and Shakespeare is like a lot to do with where we live. He's everywhere. And so I was like, that's really cool that that part of it is involved as well. So basically, you've got these 7 friends, and they're at Delashire, the arts school, studying Shakespearean theatre. And this school, you have to be very, very, they're very selected. You can't just pay your way in. Although it's one of those schools that's very expensive, you can't just pay your way in. I think there's 4 years, and this group of friends are in their final year. And basically, it's just a bit cutthroat. So it's like every year, loads of people are cut from the school and from that particular programme until the final year. You've got this small group left. So us 7 friends at Delashire are there. They're in their final year studying theatre. So everything has got really, really built up and really, really intense for them. So throughout this school year, they're studying all of their final plays and all their performances they've got to give. They're studying Shakespearean and all of the things that they normally would be, but it's really, really amped up. The pressure is much, much more applied, and everything becomes a little bit more sinister and a little bit more intense. And everything just, the pressure really, really is on them. So the seven friends do kind of remind me a little bit of the people in The Secret History, but for me they were like a little bit more relatable and a little bit more likeable in this book. And those 7 friends basically come from all different corners of the globe, really, and they all find themselves there in America doing these theatre studies, and they are the very, very best of friends, so much so that they are basically family. And a lot of them have very shady backgrounds with their family, and you don't want to, they don't want to tell anything about it, but that's fine, because they are the group of bestest friends, and they are so theatrical. They talk to each other in Shakespearean all the time, which was a little bit much to get your head around at first, but then you kind of think, I don't actually have to worry about the ins and outs of exactly what that means. I'm just going to follow the story, and it gets much easier if you do that. So yeah, they're very theatrical. They talk to each other in Shakespearean all the time, and everything's acting and dramatic, and everything a normal person would feel, they feel it like times 10. And so all of their emotions are really, really amped up. They're very, very proud and a little bit pretentious to be at this Delashire school as well, studying the arts, and they've made it to their final year, and they're kind of the best of the best, and they know it. So what's happening is they're going through their final year. Like I said, they're studying for their plays and everything, until relationships become a little bit more strained and things become a little bit more on edge, intense than they were before. And it may be because of everything that's going on with their school year and everything getting much more pressure on them and everything like that. But also something happens, which, as the blurb explains, tragedy strikes. One of the 7 friends is found dead. That doesn't happen until quite far on into the book. But by the time that's happened, the person who it is that has died, you're kind of like, the tension and the atmosphere that's built up around that character, you're kind of like a bit glad of it happening, because they're not the nicest person in the world. And after that happens, the story then goes of how the rest of the 6 of them have to come up with a plan to keep eyes off of them and to basically make sure that, their lives go on ahead as normal, their school year goes on ahead as normal. They're so close to finishing, and they're so close to doing these final productions that they so desperately care about. And basically they want to keep police eyes off them, school teachers' eyes off them. Not saying that they did anything, but I'm just saying they're struggling to keep it together after this. It's a huge rift in the group. The person that has died is not necessarily missed, but also was a huge part of the group, and it's about them trying to keep it together and try not to lose their minds, which doesn't go that well to plan. That is an incredibly brief overview of the plot. There is so much more to it than that, and so much more that happens. And actually, what you read on the blurb, which is what I was like, yeah, that sounds really good, I'm really, really into that, sounds so interesting. But actually, the book itself is so much more interesting otherwise. I kind of even forgot that was going to happen. And then when it did, I was like, oh yeah, that happens. But the book as a whole is so interesting. I really liked that instead of chapters, this is divided into acts. So that's really cool because it's like a script and it's like a play and it feels Shakespearean, and it's divided into 5 acts, which I think is quite traditional to Shakespeare. And within the acts, that is broken down. So the acts are kind of like parts to the book, and the chapters are called scenes. And I really liked that. I think it was a really good way to style the book and to keep it in theme with what we're talking about and what's happening. It really, really keeps you in the vibe and in the theme and in the plot of what's actually happening and where they are and in the Shakespearean theatrical world. So I really, really enjoyed that part of it. It was, you know, it's got a lot of Shakespearean quotes, so at times it did feel a little bit hard to get through, but like I just said, you just have to accept that you don't know exactly what everything means and just take it for what it is and move along with it, and the plot moves along with it, and it's easy enough to keep on top with that way. Characters wise, there are 7 main characters who are each of the 7 best friends that are at Delisher doing the theatrical studies. They are all completely different people. I think there's 3 girls and 4 boys, and basically they're all completely different personalities, but they've kind of been shoved together to do these theatrical studies, and now they've become so close that they are like family. However, with all of the things that are happening through the book and with all of the, you know, the things that are happening, it gives it away on the blurb there, their relationships don't quite go together as they have been. You know, they're not as easy and they're not as familial and everything like that. They become much more tense, and there's a lot more rifts in the group, and there's a lot more like drama and backstabbing, and as the story amps up, that happens with it. Really, apart from those 7 main characters, I would say the only other main characters are Detective Colborne, who is a detective who is trying to figure out what happened with this death, and then the school teachers who they have really, really, really close relationships with. But other than that, I would say that those are really the main characters of the story. As I said in the beginning of the video as well, those characters did kind of remind me of the characters in The Secret History by Donna Tartt, but the characters in this book still as pretentious and still as artsy and in places annoying and kind of like a little bit up themselves and things like that. But I found them much more relatable and likable as characters. Their personalities were a little bit more like in line with somebody who I can imagine knowing in real life, rather than the people in The Secret History. You're like, I'm so interested in these characters and the way they're written, but like I hate them as people. They're horrible people. And I'm not saying that these characters are written better than The Secret History, because they're not. I just feel like I could kind of relate to them a little bit more than the characters in The Secret History. They're written just as well, and lots and lots of parts of this book does remind me of The Secret History. So I've briefly gone over the plot and over the characters, and I really just want to emphasise as well on that Shakespearean theme, because that is one of the main things tying this book together. A lot of the things that they're acting out in these Shakespearean plays echo into their real lives, and a lot of the characters that they're playing in their Shakespearean plays start to become elements of their characters themselves. So that part of it, the Shakespearean theatrical side of it, was so heavily important to the story. And not just because all of the characters converse in a lot of Shakespearean, because they're just like Shakespeare geeks. That is a really, really important part of it. And they talk to each other very much so in Shakespearean. They study the plays, they read the books. It's just a very, very, very important part of the book. And I think, I don't know that much about, I should probably, but I don't know that much about Shakespeare or his plays. I think if you're somebody who really understands a lot of Shakespeare and Shakespearean plays, you'll probably see a lot of similarities in the Shakespeare plays that are mentioned in this book as to the plot itself and what ends up happening. I feel like there's a lot of Shakespeare is comedy and tragedy, isn't it? And a lot of this is tragedy. And I just found that element of it super, super interesting. Other than that, there are themes of, obviously, dark academia is it is the genre of the book. So that to me, I just love. I'm a huge dark academia person, and I absolutely love that element of it. There is death as well, as it explains on the back there, that one of the 7 friends die. There is a lot of dealing with grief as well. I would say as well, there's a lot of dealing with mental health issues that go on throughout this book, and also issues of sexuality as well. So a lot of really, really deep, interesting topics. but nothing that to me felt too heavy. It felt like just enough that you could really relate to the characters and try to understand what they're going through and be really interested in those themes and topics without it becoming so heavy that it's like a drag to read. It didn't feel like that at all. But yeah, those themes I found incredibly interesting, and they wove together so perfectly. So we've gone over the characters, the plot, and the themes of the book, and I think all that's really left to do is to tell you my thoughts and feelings about the book. And yeah, like I said, I knew that I was going to like it because I love Donna Tartt's The Secret History, and there's lots of comparisons between the two. Another reason I knew that I was going to like it was because I love dark academia so much. I don't know what it is, but I love that genre. I love to be in that kind of world and in that feeling and in that setting, and especially because it does talk a lot about Shakespeare as well. That's very relevant to where we live and when we spend a lot of our time and what's important around us. Like, so that to me was super cool and interesting as well. So I loved those elements of it. I did wonder when I started to read it whether it was going to be too much for me and a little bit too hard to follow, because same as The Secret History, at first you're hit with a lot of Shakespearean quotes and the characters are talking to each other in Shakespearean, and you're like, oh my god, am I going to follow this because I don't know what they're talking about. But if you kind of just let that wash over you and go along with it and read the story otherwise, it does end up making sense and it does tie together. And even if you don't think that you can read those bits of Shakespeare and they make any sense to you whatsoever, it kind of doesn't matter because the story is still so interesting, and it's like those bits of Shakespeare are just the cherry on top that tie everything in together and add that extra element of like theatre and tragedy. And it's just, I love that part of it so much. But if you are worried about that, don't worry, because that doesn't really matter. You don't have to understand all of those quotes to be able to get through this book. I feel like I'm talking really fast because I'm very passionate about this book. But something that I didn't realise until starting to read this book, that I was in a bit of a reading slump. And it's not that I haven't enjoyed some of the books that I've previously read before this, because I have. You know, I read Spellbound, which I quite enjoyed, and I read Survive the Night by Riley Sager, which I enjoyed, and a few other things before that. I loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo as well. So there have been books that I've really enjoyed, but none that I've felt like I can't wait to pick it up as much as this one. So when I picked this up and then I started to be like, oh yeah, I'll just read a few more pages, I'll just like carry on 15 more minutes and stuff like that, I realised that I was like, actually, up until now I've been a little bit in a reading slump, and this got me right out of it. It's it was so interesting to me that even as a slow reader, it didn't matter. I just wanted to devour it. I just wanted to, you know, read a few more pages and, oh, just give me 15 more minutes before we turn out the lights kind of thing. I just was really into this. I wanted to read it in the daytime on my lunch breaks. I wanted to read it at night. I wanted to go to bed earlier so that I could read it for longer. And that's how I know that I really enjoyed this book. As a slow reader, it wasn't that hard to get through. The chapters are kind of long, but they're broken down by the scenes, so it kind of doesn't matter. You can get quite easily from one scene to the next without feeling like, you know, oh god, when's the next chapter, because I need to stop reading. So I found it quite easy to get through, even though it has got all of that like heavy themes to it and the Shakespearean and all of that. I didn't find it hard to read at all. I was flipping through it, like I was reading it like so much more than I would, and like I said, it got me out of a reading slump, which I didn't even know that I was in, and I enjoyed reading it so much. I love those themes. And also, I'm not going to give anything away, but I just want to say, like, if you've read this book or if you haven't, the ending, the stab twist of the knife to the gut that I got reading the ending of this book, it was just pure Shakespearean tragedy, and I loved it. And I loved this book. There's no way I'm not going to pick this up again. I absolutely will. Like, I'm kind of like, I want to read it again. But obviously I won't do that right away. But I loved it so much. I loved that it was about theatre. I loved that it was about Shakespeare. I loved that it was about murder. I loved that it was dark academia. I loved the way the characters were written. I loved the way the story was written. There was no part of the plot that I thought, oh, come on, like, move along with it. Like, this is getting a bit boring. It didn't stall in anywhere for too long. It didn't lose its way at all for me. I absolutely love this book. If you can't tell, I really enjoyed reading If We Were Villains, and I ended up scoring this a 5 out of 5 stars. Another thing that I forgot to mention as well, which I just briefly want to mention before I wrap it up, is that this tells the story of the 7 kids at school and what happened to them when one of them passed away. But it tells it like from the future looking back. So it has these epilogues which are about Oliver Marks. I'm not giving anything away because it is on the blurb, but when he comes out of prison, he serves 10 years for a murder, and when he comes out of prison, it's like it keeps bringing you at the beginning of each, not chapter, what they called act, back to the present moment where he's become out of prison and he's talking to Detective Colborne, and then each scene goes back in time to when they were all at school and to everything that was happening there, and all of the crazy things they got up to in their drama studies and doing their Shakespearean plays, which were very dramatic and deep and crazy. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I found that element of it very interesting. So yes, I thoroughly enjoyed reading If We Were Villains, and I'm really pleased to have found another 5-star book, because I feel like everything I've been reading recently has been like a 3, a 3.5, a 4, which are all great obviously, but to find another 5-star, and this is going to be a story that lives in my head for ages. It's going to be one that I'm going to keep revisiting. I'm going to keep thinking about that ending and about the characters and the Shakespeareanness of it all, and I just loved it so much. If you have read If We Were Villains, please let me know, spoiler free, in the comments what you thought of it. If you haven't, does this sound interesting to you? Does this sound like something that you'd like to read? Let me know if yes and if no, and why. And also, if you've read If We Were Villains and you enjoyed it as much as I did, or if you've read The Secret History and enjoyed it as much as I did, I'd absolutely love to have some more Dark Academia recommendations. I've got a little shelf on my bookshelves that is Dark Academia. So I've got a few more to get through yet, but if you've got any recommendations that you're like, do you know what, if you love that, then you'll love this, then please do let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video and hear me blabber on about this book. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love you forever if you would like this video and if you would subscribe to my little channel, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.